Oh, is that? Oh, right.
Meeting's going to open at 8:10. I know everybody's just standing. The 584th meeting of the Board of Trustees will come to order. Please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Drucker, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Yes, Dr. Gordon. Mary Adams, absent. Anthony Carnaccio is present. John DeGrace.
Present.
Arnold Drucker is present. George Gordon.
Present.
Wanda Jackson.
Present.
Edward Powers is absent. Donna Tooman.
Present.
Kathy Weiss.
Present.
Jennifer Borzum.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I request a motion that the board go into executive session pursuant to Section 105 of the Open Meeting Law of the State of New York to discuss matters leading to the appointment, promotion, demotion, or removal of a particular person. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries.
We'll be back.
We will be back.
I don't know what's watching.
Meeting is going to resume at 9:05. Please rise and salute the
I
flag.
can't find my agenda.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Drucker, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Yes, Chair Gordon. Mary Adams, absent. Anthony Carnaccio. Here. John DeGrace.
Present.
Arnold Drucker is present. George Gordon.
Present.
Wanda Jackson. Edward Powers is absent. Donna Tooman.
Present.
Kathy Weiss.
Present.
Jennifer Borzum.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Trustee Drucker. Do I have a motion to approve the May 12, 2015 minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Carnaccio, do I have? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. Let's go to reports of the standing committees. Trustee Weiss, would you bring up the first one?
Sure. Resolved that the pending college procurement agreement for the renovation of Davis Avenue in the amount of $330,000 as requested by the Vice President for Facilities Design and Construction. Funding source capital $792.
Do I have a motion to consider this item?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries 8-0.
Keep going.
Yeah, could you please?
Resolved that the pending college procurement agreement for the new health services office in the amount of $598,000 as requested by the VP Facilities Design and Construction, funding source capital funding 70111.
So do I have a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries 8-0. Trustee Carnaccio, would you be kind enough to read the next one?
Be it further resolved that the National Community College Board of Trustees authorize the increase in the hourly rate of pay for student aides from $8 to $8.75 per hour effective September 1, 2015 for on-campus employment. I thought there was another, yes, and be it further resolved that the National Community College Board of Trustees authorize the increase in the hourly rate of pay for college work study employees from $8 to $8.75 per hour effective September 1, 2015 for on-campus employment.
So do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries 8-0. And again, let's welcome our new trustee, Jennifer Borzan. Jennifer, I'm going to ask you to read the next motion, and just so that you're aware, the meetings are usually not this short.
That Nassau Community College Board of Trustees approves the appropriation of $1,693,250 in equal amounts of revenue and expenses as follows. Should we read the whole chart?
You just read total.
You did.
Total $1,693,250.
So moved.
So, I have a motion, Mr. Cornacchio, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Trustee Weiss, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion carries 8-0. Trustee Jackson, would you be kind enough to read the next? Oh, I'm sorry, we're up to the additional item. I'm going to make a motion to Article 4, Section 3 of the Board's Rules of Procedure to allow for the consideration of an item that does not appear on the calendar. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Trustee Jackson, would you be able to read the food pantry?
Be it resolved that Nassau Community College Board of Trustees approves the college's entering into an agreement with Nassau Empowerment and Support for Tomorrow, Inc., NEST, to utilize certain college facilities for the operation of the on-campus food pantry to be available to members of the Nassau campus community.
Is there any further discussion of the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries 8-0. I think that is going to provide much needed service for the students of Nassau Community College and anyone else.
And
So,
thanks to the work of that committee to put this together.
absolutely. Let's have a round of applause for that committee. All right. Again, I'm going to add for an additional item and make a motion to Article 4, Section 3 of the Board's Rules and Procedures to allow for the consideration of an item that does not appear on the calendar. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Trustee Trumper, would you be kind enough?
Just to resolve?
Just a resolve.
Be it resolved that the Nassau Community College Administration is authorized to enter into an agreement with Nice Bus for the use by Nice Bus of certain college parking lots for driver training.
Okay. Is there any other discussion of the resolution?
Just a comment that, as we discussed in the Finance Committee, or Capital, we will be having a quid pro quo with this, and we'll be able to do advertising inside their buses for the 2 years that we're going to have this. So that's something that it's not just letting them use it, we're getting a lot for that. And I think it's important for people that were not here during that meeting to know that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay. And Trustee Tooman, would you be kind enough to read the next one under personnel?
Resolved that upon the recommendation of the college administration, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the titles of Administrative Assistant 4, Lecturer 2, and Technical Assistant 4, and requests the approval of the Chancellor and the Board of Trustees of the State University of New York.
Do I have a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Aye.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries 8-0. We have another item to add, so I'm going to make a motion to Article 4, Section 3 of the Board's Rules and Procedures to allow for the consideration of an item that does not appear on the calendar. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Ms. Jackson? Trustee Jackson, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. Trustee DeGrace, would you be kind enough?
The Presidential Search Committee?
Yes.
Yes, whereas the Board of Trustees has established a Presidential Search Committee.
You can just read the resolve, John.
Okay, resolved that the name of Jennifer Borzum shall be inserted in lieu of the name of Patrick Deegan as the student trustee. The name of Evelyn Borsman Deludi shall be inserted in lieu of Edward Boyden as designee of the Academic Senate, and the name Juliana Dreiska shall be inserted in lieu of Candice Lopez as designee of the Student Government Association of the Presidential Search Committee.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion of the resolution?
Aye. Move.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries 8-0. We have an additional item. Make a motion that Article 4, Section 3 of the Board's Rules of Procedure to allow for the consideration of an item that does not appear on the calendar. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cornacchio, thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
I abstain.
You haven't voted on the thing yet.
7. Okay. 7-1, 0. Trustee Jackson, would you be kind enough to read?
Resolved that pursuant to the terms of the collective bargaining agreement with the Nassau Community College Federation of Teachers and upon recommendation of the college-wide promotion and training committee and the college administration, the faculty member named herein is hereby granted promotion and/or tenure at Nassau Community College effective September 1st. Salon Khandarani, Engineering, Physics, and Technologies Department.
Any further discussion of the item? Call for any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Against?
I abstain.
You have
1 abstention. So motion carries 7.
We're laughing because you forgot the motion and who's seconding. That's okay. Speed it up. That's good. You're doing good.
Well, it's completely omitted on here anyway, so I got to vote in at least.
701.
710, okay, 701. Okay. Trustee Cornacchio, would you read the next one under academic affairs?
And resolved that the National Community College Board of Trustees hereby approves the proposal by the Department of English AA degree in creative writing and recommends the approval of this program by the State University of New York.
Do I have a motion to consider this item?
I have a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. All right, we have one more additional item. I make a motion to Article 4, Section 3 of the Board's Rules of Procedure to allow for the consideration of an item that does not appear on the calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Trustee Drucker, would you be able to read the strategic plan, please?
Yes. Resolved that the Board of Trustees affirms its approval on February 10, 2015, of the Nassau Community College Strategical Plan.
Is there any further discussion on this resolution? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstention? Motion carries 8-0. Okay. We're now going to come to the fun part of the evening. We're going to have a discussion on the academic issues related to class size, limitations, degree revisions, and placement testing, exemption policy revisions. As I had sent to Mr. Liddy, we're going to have NCCFT please make their presentations. We're going to start the academics, forgive me. We're going to start with class size limitations. I will ask, in the interest of getting out before tomorrow, that we hold this to 15 minutes as agreed upon. All right? Are you?
Can we introduce our team first?
No.
No. Okay.
Of course you can.
I don't know. I have to ask.
Who's going to be the one speaker, though?
We collaborate. We work together. We're all speaking.
You're not getting
we've
15
broken it
minutes
up.
each.
No, we don't expect that, but we've broken
Please.
it up. I'm Dr. Evelyn Wertzman DeLuty, Chair of the Academic Senate, Professor of Philosophy. David Stern, first Dr. David Stern, first Vice Chair, Professor of Physical Sciences. Dr. Paul Rosa, second Vice Chair, Associate Professor of English. Professor Chris Merlo, Secretary, Associate Professor of Mathematics, Computer Science, and Information Technology.
I don't know if I'm going to recognize it from the front.
I thought you were going to make the arguments to them. You'll win.
To everyone. We want to be
Sit down.
inclusive.
Make yourself at home here.
Inclusive. So we also have our former chairs of the Senate who collaborate with us, Dr. Richmond, Dr. Boyd.
I'm including this in your 15 minutes.
I will.
Please step up to the podium. It's a long night.
Mrs. Jackson is keeping time. When the hand strikes the right dot, we cut off the light.
Good evening. 3 issues frame our discussion tonight: student academic success and retention, Middle States Standard 4, leadership and governance, financial concerns of the college. We're here to advocate for our students. Their success, not just in the short run at our college, but for the long haul, as they transfer to 4-year institutions and enter the job market, is foremost in our minds. Middle States Standard 4 leadership and governance serves as our compass in this undertaking. Middle States, which accredits our college, stipulates that, quote, an accredited institution is expected to possess or demonstrate a well-defined system of collegial governance, end quote. Collegial discourse calls for open, honest, and respectful debate, which, as we know, is not necessarily synonymous with simple agreement. Until 2010, NCC was the poster child for just that. Our academic senate, which adheres to written governing documents such as bylaws, as required by Middle States, isn't a faculty senate. We're comprised of faculty, students, and administrators. Sadly, in the last 5 years, administrators participate infrequently in Senate debates. Senate minutes show that up to 2010, our administrators were vocal and present in the Senate and speaking on the floor of the Senate. Tonight, we'll see how our college has deviated from this paradigm of shared governance over the last 5 years, thereby putting itself at risk for the next Middle States review. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the elephant in the room, our financial situation. We are cognizant of the fact that budget constraints inform decisions, but it's time for NCC to devise innovative marketing tactics and mine untapped sources of public and private funding. We hope that one of the criteria by which presidential candidates will be evaluated in the ongoing search addresses their fundraising expertise, vision, and plans for our college. Members of the board, as trustees, you are authorized to review all matters that facilitate the mission of the college. We understand this is not your full-time job, and we value your civic service to the community. It is our hope that we will return to collaborative collegial debate with the administration, which is the actual intent of the Senate bylaws. To that end, we ask that you, the members of the board, be mindful of the shared governance process that has sustained the long-term well-being of our students and this institution since this college's inception. We hope that your decisions tonight will reinvigorate the tried and true shared governance process at NCC that follows academic senate procedures and return our college to the high standing it garnered for Standard 4 leadership and governance during the last Middle States review. Dr. Stern will continue.
Okay, I have a copy of the presentation I'm doing, so I'm going to follow along, take notes. Yes. Well, we're professors, right?
I have an extra.
Okay. Okay. So next one. Well, I think we can all agree that the overriding agreed priority. Thank you. The overall agreed priority is student academic success and retention. And this is asserted in the Nassau Community College's catalog, quote, the college places high priority on small classes. This is also stated in the catalog in the President's message, quote, a steady commitment to realize student-centered spirit and goals. It probably was best summarized as far as this issue of class size by our student president, our current SGA student president, Juliana, who's in the audience today. Nassau, and she's made the statement during a Senate debate on this issue, Nassau's reputation for small class sizes, which make it easier for a student to connect with their professors, was the deciding factor in her choice to study at Nassau Community College. And I'm sure she is not the only student. In SUNY, On our website, under the SUNY, in the portal, under the SUNY corner, they have our report card. And I know Trustee Weiss is very interested in metrics. And SUNY Metrics lists our college, okay? And when you take a look at the metrics, our report card, as far as retention rate, is 71%. The SUNY target, 62%. So we're well over the SUNY target. We're doing much better than many community colleges. Our current SUNY success, which if you read the document, it refers to transfer rates. Again, the SUNY target, 74.3, we're hitting 74. Again, very respectable. Now, to object to some of the acting president's administration's arguments against the Senate having responsibility to determine what the class size should be, and the administration taking unilateral action, in your documents that you got from the administration, it included Vice President Osseling's May 17, 2010 memo, and the administration claims that this justifies why a permanent policy has been in place since that time. Now, if you read that document, Vice President Osseling indicates the action is unusual and temporary. Okay, it did not say it was permanent. And in fact, it's quoted, "I do not favor continuing overloading long term." If you take a look at, again, further claims that letter makes it legitimate for the administration to take unilateral action on class size, Vice President Osseling's memo indicates the action is not optimal. It occurred in an extreme financial situation when the SUNY cut our budget by tens of millions of dollars, and the recession caused our enrollment to explode in 2008. The Academic Senate minutes of throughout 2012 to the current record showed that, that both former President Astrab and current Acting President Saunders agreed to the fact that the Senate took action to address class size. They agreed to those actions. So obviously, it wasn't a settled policy at that point. Now, we really need collegiality on campus. When you look at Osseling's letter, it's quite interesting the way he addresses the faculty. It's "Dear colleagues." We haven't seen that in a while. Emphasis on the role of faculty in student success. I quote from Dr. Osseling, "The fact remains that a major loss of full-time faculty harms an institution for years to come, an issue that we'll surely be discussing together at a later date." And that was in his letter. Now, he also was concerned about keeping the faculty informed. I quote, "I do believe that you are owed a full exposition," that's his term, exposition of the academics affairs perspective on budgetary issues. Now, at the present moment, such an explanation still eludes the Senate and perhaps even the Board of Trustees. Conclusions, class size policy has always been formulated by the Academic Senate. Vice President Osseling's memo of 2010 never became permanent academic policy. Senate resolutions and those resolutions confirmed by President's letters in 2012 and 2013 further acknowledge that this policy is formulated through the Senate process. The policy on class size, like all the other academic policies, should be formulated collaboratively by the President and the Academic Senate on an ongoing basis. Now, Vice President Osseling respected the faculty's right to full disclosure of the administration's reasons for temporarily unilateral action as far as class size. We still have not been provided a reason for harming our students' education by raising class size. The Academic Senate Executive Committee calls upon you, the members of the board, to sustain the Senate's override of the presidential veto of the resolution of class size so that the administration's concern can be addressed via our current shared governance system. Thank you.
That we have time left in these 15 minutes. I'm not quite sure how much time we used.
9:44, 9:45. You got 5 minutes.
So I got 5 minutes, so can I pass that on
We'd
to,
like to pass that on and
yes.
hold on to it for later use if we may.
No,
No?
no. This is one item,
oh, I should have been longer then.
each item 15 minutes.
Are we going
We're not, there's no carryover.
You know, I want to be considerate of everyone's time too.
I appreciate that
We
greatly.
aim to be
If-
concise here.
Yes.
If you can make your point in 10 minutes, then
Not-
it
not-
tells me
under 10
that,
minutes, right?
it tells me that you have a good, concise, working knowledge of the issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Cornacchia,
Just wondering, does the administration respond on this particular item?
administration is now going to do their presentation.
Okay, and then
They have
the
15
second
minutes.
and then the third.
And we're going to do, we're going to question, we'll ask our questions after we hear both sides.
Okay.
And then we'll bring both groups up and share, because this is open discussion.
You're gonna handle it?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, board and faculty and staff. At the outset of my commentary respecting the Academic Senate resolution on class size, I would just like to take a few moments to reflect on the 3 issues that are before us this evening from a policy perspective. And those issues are the class size, degree revisions, and the college placement testing exemption policy. First, with respect to class size, we operate in a climate of limited resources. Nassau County has been unable to provide monetary support to the college in the amount anticipated, namely 1/3 of the college revenue needs. As a result of ever-mounting costs, the college has been forced to substantially reduce its reserve and raise tuition rates. The issue of class size relates directly to the goal of prudent financial management of the college. No one in the administration seeks to overburden faculty-student loads. However, we must be mindful of the need to be fiscally responsible. Also, as you will hear during my presentation respecting the Senate's class size resolution, the action that has been taken by the administration is nothing more than an attempt to bring class sizes into conformance with guidelines that were instituted by the administration in 2010 without challenge by the Academic Senate. I think it's important to recognize that the financial challenges and the burden that were in place then are currently in place now. And that the administration's effort and action was not a revision of class sizes, but a realignment of the class sizes in accordance with the 2010 resolution. There weren't any adjustments. There wasn't anything new that was brought to the table. It was a recognition that what had become the practice at the institution since the resolution from Dr. Osling in 2010 had been enacted, and that we recognized that our situation was still the same, but some departments, 27% of the programs at the institution, had changed those class sizes and moved them downward. And recognizing what the impact of that would be, the Executive Vice President, in conjunction with the academic deans, realigned those numbers. That is the justification, that is the rationale. The process that brought us to the original numbers in 2010 was a consultative process, and what we did was to realign that. In that realignment, the Executive Vice President met with the academic chairs and asked if there was any circumstances or condition that would result in us not having to realign them, and those concerns were taken into consideration. So while there is this illusion of there not being a collaborative or working relationship, that is not true. That's my presentation.
Ken, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to move over one chair. Evelyn and David, come on up to the front. Everyone is going to sit together, and now
Well, we'd love to.
We're going to do this together, folks. So I now leave it open to the members of the board. If you have any questions, issues, questions that you want to ask either party, all right? And it will not be cross-debate. It will be questions issued by the board and a response.
May I just ask, may we respond to what Dr. Saunders
No.
has said before?
No.
It's not a debate.
This is not a debate.
Oh,
This
because
is-
you had mentioned a possible rebuttal in the letter you sent us. I was just wondering.
After the board does your question.
What order do you have in mind for questions?
Whatever you want to question to either one of the two parties.
Starting with me, starting at that end, this end, the middle
And-
end,
Are we timing this or what?
top to bottom.
Whatever you, Tony, I'll start with you.
Dr.
Trustee
Saunders,
Canardi. I'm sorry.
Dr. Saunders, I already gave you a heads up. The real issue I have here with class size.
Speak into the mic.
The real issue I have, Dr. Saunders, with regard to class size, and I already give you a heads up on this, because it bothers me, it troubles me. Let me say, I laud your efforts to maximize the limited resources you have, to look at fiscal responsibility, to minimize costs, there's no question about it. But contracts are sacred things, and they have to be followed. And the problem, and frankly, I think if I had to go to a drawing board, a blackboard, a blank board, I would say the administration should determine class size. In consultation with the faculty, but the ultimate should be with the administration and well, really ultimately the Board of Trustees. But that's not what we have here. We have, and I'm just going to center on one thing. The resolution by the Senate on April 23, 2013, which says the numbers to be used for reviewing and making recommendations for maintaining or changing class size based on the CWCC approved master class size limits. And you concur with that. You sign off on it April 25, 2013. That, to my understanding, becomes a contract item. And it's a stumbling block for me. Now, I understand that there's a history before this that I find very confusing, and I dismiss that history. If you can resolve for me how you get around this 2013 approval by you of that resolution, you may have me going in your favor. And of course, I just speak for myself. I understand that since 2013, the class sizes were set. There's really been no change. You're going back to 2010, what Jack Ostling did, who was then Vice President for Academics. But the point is, if he did it, and it was a violation of the contract then, it becomes a violation of the contract for all time. Just because nothing was done by the Academic Senate or the NCCFT does not mean that they lost the right to insist on a contract item, as I understand it. But putting that to the side, we have this thing that happened in 2013. Now, I know you already told me downstairs, well, it's not a change because you're going back to what it used to be. In my simple peasant mind, because I'm just a simple country lawyer, if you're taking something now and you're making it different, it's a change. You can say, well, I'm changing it back to what it was in 2010 or 1970, but it's a change. And I think it's a violation of what you signed off on. So if you have anything further to say on that, that's my take on this particular thing. And you people I have no questions for, and it pains me that there's something here that I have to go your way unless he can resolve that, because now I'll tell you something else. If you did something crazy where you said class size shall be 4, I think we have the inherent power to correct an evil thing, a wrong thing, okay? But that's not what this is. All right, Dr. Saunders, so I ran out of breath. It's up to you.
My response is not any different than what I shared with you earlier today, that the resolution that I signed off on was for prospective discussions as it relates to class size. What we need to take into consideration is that the establishment of class size was created back in 1977. And in 1978, the number for class size was 36. We have never exceeded that, with the exception of those labs in allied health sciences, and when the resolution said there are certain exceptions that can be had for certain types of lecture classes. So what Dr. Osling did in 2010 was not a violation. It was done in consultation. It was, I admit, originally intended to be short-term, but the circumstances of the institution has not changed. So the process begins back in '77. And what has occurred and what I signed off on was the process that would be incorporated in making any additional adjustments in class size going forward.
But that's not what you signed off on in 2013. I don't see how you can reconcile it. Yes, and that comes from the heart. And I wish you could, and I wish I could if you couldn't, but I can't. I don't know, I'm sure there are other questions for other people on the board.
Well, I don't know if he answered your question.
Well, he answered. He put it in a time machine. And I guess if that's all you have to work with, you work with it. And I'm sure you believe it. It's just
It's not just simply a matter of what I believe. It's a matter of what is written. And it's a matter of how we follow those policies. Now, I see it differently in the way that you see it. But I do see that the language that was originally established by an academic senate resolution regarding class size was established back in '77. And there hasn't been, to my awareness, a formal process that has been executed up until this resolution that you're making reference to that speaks to how it will be handled in a go-forward fashion, not retroactively. So what Dr. Osling did in fall of 2010 established a precedent that was not challenged and was followed across the board. And there was not a formal process that took into consideration what that resolution is saying from that point forward that spoke to how that process, how those numbers would be changed.
Maybe I misunderstand you. Is it your position that this resolution by the Senate, which you approved on April 23, 2013, was talking about class sizes as it existed on that date? And you're saying that class sizes as it existed on that date was the class sizes that Jack Osling decided back whenever he did what he did? Was that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, then I can buy that. If that's what you're saying, I can buy it.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Let me ask you folks, the enemy, the opposition, the academic senate.
We are not the enemy.
I understand.
We academics, we are here. I know, but I have to take this seriously and
Here's
put it
my
on, have
question.
it on
Here's my
record.
question. If you don't laugh, my love, tell me something, you'll cry.
I
So that's why I'm
laugh all
always
the time.
laughing.
I laugh all the time, but I still have to say what has to be said.
Are you agreeing with his position that this resolution talks about class sizes as they existed at this college on April 23, 2013, and the changes that are taking place are changes after that date, and that the class sizes in effect on that date, April 22, 2013, were the Osling class sizes? Is that your position?
No.
What is your position?
Maybe, again, the big question here,
I'm confused.
yes, it could be easily confused. That's why we have the academic process, the academic senate process, and we have CWCC with including administrators that discuss the details of this, as opposed to a board meeting. The way I was set up, the contract originally set up the 1977 numbers. Okay, those were the numbers that were established. Then, as new courses were added, part of the forms for every new course includes what the class size should be. So the original list, and then you have any of those courses. Now, when Jack Osling made those changes, okay, it was an extreme. I know we're in a difficult financial situation, but it was more extreme. Wait.
Example.
He
Philosophy
asked,
101 has a class size, right?
yes.
Okay. And did Osling change the class size that was in effect when he made this change you're talking about? The Osling changes.
I don't, class by class, I'm not, I wish I could say yes. It wasn't necessarily across the board because there was discussion that the Senate was not privy to at the time. So that's why we don't know, that some departments got some increases, some didn't. Now, if I could finish.
Go ahead.
What happened was after, when the college returned to a little better fiscal situation, many chairs approached their deans and said, can we go back to our original numbers? Now, that was done apparently inconsistently, okay, not every chair did that. And so those chairs that took advantage, it went to the approved, the CWC Senate approved numbers. So, that's the agreed upon numbers that we have.
When you say they went to the CWCC approved numbers, what numbers are you talking about?
This is the original 1977, for the classes that have been around since 1977 and longer. Those are the original 1977 or 78 Senate-approved resolution approved by the President, and then any new courses added on had their own numbers at that time.
May I just add one thing? There is a process in place to review class size, and that class size has been reviewed since 2010. In May 2012, Dr. Astrab, a former president, concurred with a resolution that you have in your packet.
Right.
In 2012 and 2013, there was an ad hoc committee on class size. The Senate charged the chairs to look into this. In 2013-2014, the class size student ratio was examined, and we have an ad hoc committee that the chairs committee put together. Now, these are all Senate committees. The chairs committee is a Senate committee. The curriculum committee, CWCC, in the documents you have, these are Senate committees that are looking into this. And this went through 2014, 2015. Now, the real question for us is, number one, if the reason now for raising class size are limited resources, number one, why is that not mentioned in the letter that Dr. Saunders sent the Senate? We don't hear anything about limited resources. We hear that this is done on the authority of the administration, which isn't a reason. It doesn't tell us why they're raising class size, and why didn't the administration talk to us and simply say, look, there are financial problems, so we ought to talk about class size. Then we would have said, let's get our committee together on class size. Let's let the Senate committee work with the administration. We never, today when Dr. Saunders spoke, this is the first time we have heard the term limited resources. In the letter that Dr. Saunders sent us, April 17th, 2015, former chair of the Senate, Ed Boyden, there's no discussion of limited resources. There's a discussion that it's the administration has the authority to do this. We're not asking about that. We're asking, well, why are you raising class size? Work with us.
Can I interject for a second?
Yes.
One of the statistics that comes out to me is that back in 2010, let's call it the Osling decision, comes out to increase class size. And from that time forward, okay, 73% of the departments were in compliance. 27% were not. It was recently identified.
Yeah, what do you mean by compliance?
In other words, that they had the higher class size.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you know who can actually change the number?
Who can actually change the number?
Yeah, in
Well,
Banner.
I don't know about Banner. I don't know who changes.
The faculty and the chairs do not have the authority to change the number.
Maria, I'm going
It's
to ask you
only
to
the
come up as an
administration.
expert witness. Who can change, come up to, wherever chair comes to the mic. Who can change items in Banner?
I don't need the money.
Okay,
Who can change the number in Banner? The registrar's office.
the registrar's
And
office.
who
Correct.
tells the registrar's office to change something?
Who has the authority?
The department chairs.
So the department chair,
That's
The
not,
department chairs submit the
Let her
schedule.
finish
The department chairs often call the registrar's office to say, I need this class lowered because, and there are a myriad of reasons why they give to roll back certain classes.
And then the registrar does that simply because the chairperson asked that it be done.
The current registrar, no, I can't speak for the registrar that was in place in 2010. That might have been the case. The current registrar will turn around and ask the deans if that is in fact something that should be done, check with the dean to see if there was consultation by the board.
Any other questions?
May I respond? I just think we have quite a number of chairs here, and if we would ask them, I don't think they can simply decide that classes need to be, that the classes decide that the enrollment needs to be reduced,
We're not
and
labeled.
therefore
Go,
tell the
take a seat.
registrar. I mean, I don't think that, and we have these chairs here, Professor Mazzola. I don't think that chairs can simply say to the registrar, we need to lower class size. In, as far as my experience in the college, I'm not a chair, but we have Professor Mazzola who could speak directly to the point. She's the most qualified. Okay, but I have to.
Ms. Ludi, you are the representative of the academic senate.
Good. And I have to say that I beg to disagree. I don't think the chairs can simply say, may I just finish my sentence? I just beg to disagree. I don't think the chairs can simply say, this class needs to have fewer students and therefore tell the registrar lower the enrollment.
Is that your opinion, or are you stating that as a fact?
We have an
I'm stating it as a fact.
And you know that as a fact?
I know that as a fact.
Okay, so your facts are different than
Yes.
Maria's facts.
And I can speak in behalf of my department, because I know with my chair, when we went back to the original CWC approved numbers, that it was discussed with Dean Fernandez, and that's where it was approved.
Is that in writing?
I would have to ask my chair, but I know we had that discussion, and it occurred.
Was it already the P&B committees?
This was the chair had asked the Dean Fernandez, you know, now that the crisis is over, can we go back to our numbers? Because this is, you know, our labs, it's dangerous to have too many students, as you probably know. So it was granted at that time.
Let me ask you this, did that go through the CWCC? And was that in the form of minutes, and did the president approve it?
No, because those were the approved, it went back to the approved numbers. It was out of compliance, if you will.
As I understand you, numbers were changed, okay? Then there came a time that the oscillating numbers went back to a different number, higher or lower. And you said that's when the chairs spoke with some of the deans. Did those different numbers occur? Did those different numbers occur after it went before the CWCC, the committee? And did it then appear in academic senate minutes? And was it then approved by the president?
I would say the number was approved many years ago. That was the approved number.
David, the question is, when your department chair decided to change the class size unilaterally without the approval of the CWCC or the academic senate, was there any trail that said that moving back was done through a process? Because we're all talking about not following the process.
Let me ask you this. Okay, the class size, the approved class size is 24. It went up to 26. So he asked for it to go to 24. So what would he be asking the Senate, again, I understand the question now, would he be asking him to go, it's approved at 24, go to 24? It was never approved for 26. So how do you ask for it to be approved for what it was?
I think what my fellow trustees are trying to say is that there's a process, and what you guys are really alleging is a problem is that we haven't followed the process.
Oh,
and so
yes.
the questions they're asking you about the changes is, did you follow the process to make the changes that you made? Which it doesn't seem like you did.
I guess the question is, what?
Don't ask a question, answer a question.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay,
You
I'm
said we
sorry.
didn't follow
I'm
the
sorry.
process, and so he asked you, did you follow the
I'm not
process
used
to
to
make
trying.
the change?
Okay,
You must answer a
You
question.
must be mean, you must be mean on the dance floor.
I guess, let's say, I can see your point now, you know, you're saying that the chair should have followed the Senate process.
Don't repeat.
Well, I'm saying that
I'm
saying that you guys
guess
are
I'm
following the
confused,
process.
I'm confused what you could ask for.
You're trying to process what we're asking you.
Yeah.
So if, maybe in one sentence I
Maybe
can
have a
say,
little answer.
in one sentence, you're asking here, as the Senate, that the process be followed, that the CWC subcommittee on class sizes, I understand it's a subcommittee, should have been involved in this. And I think what some of my colleagues are saying was, as an example you gave in the science department, that the 20 Osling number, that's what I'm going to call it,
Oh, okay.
your department wished to go back to 24. Did the department, whoever that was, follow that same procedure that you've been asking be followed? Was the subcommittee of the CWCC involved in this new change? Because the Osling thing is still what's on the books. That's on the books from 2002. Excuse me. Excuse me.
I didn't say anything.
I know you didn't.
Okay.
All I'm trying to do is help you, David,
Yes,
with
I
the
appreciate
question that's being asked. Because from some people's perspective, if you want process to be followed for one part, process should be followed for all parts. That's, I believe, the question that my colleagues were asking. That's the only, I was just trying to elect, I'm not taking a position, I'm explaining something.
Can I respond this way? Can I respond this way? Can we agree that class size is a mess, all right? And that the way to get it back in order is to follow the process that had been in place for many years before Osling took something that was outside the contract, if you will, outside the process.
Well, that's what Dr. Saunders did.
What we're at, but he didn't ask the Senate. He didn't follow the Senate process.
He said exactly that's what he intended to do.
May I interject for a moment? I was just wondering, a moment ago, a witness from the administration was called. I was wondering whether we can call a witness too. The idea was that we are all...
No, I was
Well,
at
we're going
the
to call one department chair as a witness.
No, not a
That's
department
not
chair. It's not the department chair. We have a committee, a chair's committee, and we have here the expert who's the chair of chairs. So I request that we call the chair of chairs as you called our vice president.
Let me just come up the works a little bit more here. Did Dr. Osling's changes ever become the subject of a resolution in the Senate?
Yes,
It
2012.
became the subject of a series,
Actually,
of a number of...
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second, please. What I'm going to do in the instance of fairness, and by the way, guys, we're playing this, we're writing the script as we go along, so bear with me. Lynn Zola, I'm going to call you up to the mic. I'm going to ask you to respond to one question. And the one question is the same thing that we asked Maria. Can the chair request the registrar to change class size?
And will the registrar do it?
And will the registrar do it? That's all, and that is all I want you to do.
We got the registrar here.
That's a new registrar.
Well, can I speak as chair of chairs? I was here through the Osling thing. My department, ours weren't changed, so if you want to go back to the 2010 numbers, I'd be thrilled because it'd be back to where it should be. But that's not the question. The question was, can chairs change unilaterally? We do not have that authority. We do not have that power. We have a form, and it gets into procedure. But there's a form we fill out every semester when we do our schedules, and we do it about a year in advance. And you drop classes and you add. And if you want to increase the size, you would have to drop it on the one side, put it on the other side with the increased class size. We fill out the form. It then has to go to our area dean, who has to approve it. We can't unilaterally do anything. There may be discussions. I never did that, so I never had that discussion. But there would be discussion between the dean, and then the dean would have to say yes or no to the registrar's office before it was put in. There is no direct line between a chair alone and the registrar to change that number.
Thank you.
Does that clear it up?
Lynn, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you for allowing our expert to speak.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
We're
it.
trying,
We just
I
want to
told
get
you.
all the information out, and she's the expert.
Absolutely, and remember, the script here is changing a little bit as we go
No, that
along.
was fair, that's fine.
All right, any other questions at this point from the members of the board? Trustee Jackson, do you have
Part of my questions, and again, this is not, it's sort of directed at everybody, but my concern is that we're just discovering something, that since 2010, numbers seem to have changed, and maybe there's a rationale in science which might make sense, and so that it was given to somebody in administration, but that in other places, in 27%, so I'll take your department out and make it 23% of the departments, people just made determinations on their own to
No.
change, excuse me.
Not true.
Excuse me.
I'm going to ask that we each show respect to the
Yes.
speakers as we try to show respect to your speakers. Please, collegiality and respect here tonight.
It concerns me that I've got the Osling memo in front of me. It talks about an increase of approximately 2 additional students in most sections. It concerns me that all of a sudden the administration is discovering that some of those numbers are no longer being held. I'm not placing the blame on whether it's a chair or a dean. It concerns me as a board member that this could have been going on for many years. And yes, I do think we have to look at a fiscal issue. I think that's our responsibility as a board. We have a fiduciary responsibility in good times and in bad times. And certainly we are looking at everything. Those of you who have attended finance know that we've looked at our fund balance and we are not in good shape. So we do have that kind of fiduciary responsibility.
You're also
as a board.
responsible for academic integrity, too.
And academic integrity, excuse me, David.
Sure.
As a longtime teacher of lots of levels, I know there is research everywhere, but I'm convinced that the quality of the faculty, if you give me 24 students in a safe environment, if you give me 24 students or 26 students, I will be able to teach them. You give me 24 or 50, big difference. So I'm just saying, I think everybody on this board is most concerned with the academic program we're presenting to our students. And I think everybody here is. But I will share that concern. It deeply concerns me that we're first just discovering what could be a big deal and could have saved this college a great deal of money.
May I just respond that we respect your responsibility for the financial situation of the college, but we would like this whole problem to work through the Senate process that it's supposed to work through. We were never told about any financial problem in the letter that Dr. Saunders sent to the Senate. And we're just asking that we go through the governance process to solve the problem collegially. If we would have been told, we've got to work this out, well, we have a process in place. Let's work through the shared governance process.
Just, Mr. Ludi, one question. How long have you been at this college?
Almost 20 years.
How many meetings have you been attending recently?
Meetings?
Board meetings?
I haven't counted. I mean, I've been
How
on
much?
and off, well, yeah, through the years.
Would you say that our financial situation has been present for years? We can't, you can't plead ignorance of the financial situation because we have been addressing it aggressively.
May I respond?
So,
It's been a cold slap in the face to you that there was a financial problem.
No, but you would think that a letter that is addressed to deal with an issue would simply say in black and white what the problem is.
So you're standing on ceremony, though. You're
I'm not
on
standing on ceremony, I'm standing on process, governance process. Solve the problem, identify the problem, and work together through the existing channels to solve it. That's all I'm saying. We have an easy solution because we have a governance process set up here in this college. And we want to work with the administration and with you to address this in the context of the financial situation.
Unfortunately, that's not always the case.
Well, I can only speak for
Let me know
what
when we
we
get
want
snow
now.
days in the full schedule.
Well, we will address snow days.
Been 2.5 years.
Well, I took over,
Let's stay on topic.
May I
Let's
just
stay on topic.
answer? I
Not even
became
have gone
chair
into
of the
that.
Senate on May 12, 2015, at, what was it, 12:45, and at 1 o'clock I ran to give a final exam, and to see that my students finished their semester well. So I just took over. We're ready to deal with these issues, but we're asking to work through the shared governance process that the Academic Senate bylaws
Mr.
have
Ludi.
established. Yes, Dr. Deludi.
Dr. Deludi.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Dr. Deludi, I still see the fact that 73% of the departments of this college were in compliance. There's 27% of the departments that were not, and it appears that that 27% did not follow the process. So that 27% appears to be guilty of the issue.
Yeah, but the other amount didn't follow the process either, because Osling did not follow the process, so None of that followed the process.
The other question is, when you say in compliance, the question is in compliance with...
Hold on a minute, those two are arguing
No,
between
we don't want,
themselves.
no, we want one conversation.
One
I'm
conversation,
sorry.
please.
That's why I wanted you to stop, so you
Thank
have
you.
everybody's attention.
Thank you. When we say in compliance, the question is in compliance with what? If you're in compliance, you have to be in compliance with permanent policy. To suggest that Vice President Ostling's letter of May 2010 is permanent policy is simply misleading. It's not correct. He
What do you say
says this
permanent
is
policy is?
permanent policy.
What is, yeah, with regard to class size?
What was he mistaken about?
Well, he says it's temporary in here. He
And
says this
what was
won't...
the policy? Or what
He
is the
says that,
policy?
he says in this letter, when you read it, he says, I don't favor continuing the overloading long-term.
But that was
He
the
said-
subject of a Senate resolution.
No, that's his letter.
Well,
This
didn't you
is,
just
this is,
before say
this is his
the
letter.
Senate passed that by resolution?
No, not the Ostling.
No, this is the letter you
I'm sorry.
have.
They approved in 1977, they approved individual courses, and then in 2012, there was a resolution in 2013.
And what did 2012 resolution do? Was there a list of class sizes and classes
In
2012?
No, it was setting up the process to deal with this mess, if you will.
When's the
Go
last,
forward fashion.
let me ask you, Dr. Saunders, is there a last list of approved classes and class sizes for those classes that exist, that both sides can agree on?
The last official record that I'm aware of for the class sizes was the limits that were established by Jack Osling in 2010.
No. Dr. Saunders, people keep referring to 1977, which of course is the year of the flood. It seems like so long
No, I
ago.
mean, how do you go ancient history here? It's.
He was reaffirming something that existed before him, wasn't he?
Yes.
2010, so Mr. Conaccio is asking, what was he implementing, or what was he ratifying in 2010? What numbers was he ratifying?
Was he using the 1977 numbers to add the two students on?
Yes, yes.
What numbers was he ratifying in 2010, which everyone is saying was not supposed to be of a permanent nature, but what numbers was he
My
ratifying?
understanding is that he was increasing in numbers by a fixed amount in 2010. So if there were classes that were, for like what David was saying, was at 24, they were being asked to increase those classes by 2 or 3 to accommodate the concerns. And that was being done across the board and fluctuated depending upon what the courses were.
And that's
But
what
it was an
he did.
increase from whatever the established number was at that time. And he was functioning and moving the college forward on those new numbers, depending upon what those increases were. And that had been the practice for the college since that time. There had not been a formal process to move it back or to decide whether that number was an appropriate number or a different number should be used.
So prior to 2010, it was a rather fluid thing. It fluctuated.
It really wasn't, what was constant was that there was an increase in the numbers across the board, unless there were a set of circumstances that precluded that increase from occurring. Say there was a lab, and the lab was limited to a fixed number of students, and they were already at that max, then it wouldn't increase. It would remain the same. But in every other situation where there was an opportunity to increase the numbers without jeopardizing the integrity of the academic delivery, it was done. And that became the practice for the college from then up until now when we're challenging the numbers.
David, can I ask you a question, please? I'm a physician. I am not an educator. I'm going to ask a question because from the outside, I have a very simple question. Is your ability to teach a class so compromised by the addition of 2 students? And I'm not talking about a lab. I'm talking about a classroom. And I'm asking you as a non-educator. Because I understand process, going through committee, Senate, administration. Now I'm going to ask you the absolute class size. Can you tell me that there is going to be an absolute reduction in the ability to use the class effectively and to convey because of the addition of 2 or 3 students?
Okay, let me,
Yes, please.
yeah, I'll answer it. I won't ask another question. Through our process, when a new course is developed, that number is determined. So to answer your question with adding 2, I would agree with Trustee Weiss that if you're a good professor, probably 2 is stressing, except for the course. It's dependent on the course itself. Let me take an example. I know you don't want me to ask a question, but do you think I could answer that question no problem if they add 10 students to the class?
Because that's not what the question is.
Okay, well, that's what happened to my particular class. I teach a GIS course. I don't know if you're familiar with GIS mapping. It's high-tech. There's a lot of careers in it. The class has been capped at 14 for many years. It's now in Banner, as per the policy, not +4, but +10. Okay, so I would ask the question back. I know you don't want me to, but do you think that would be effective, almost doubling the class? And I can tell you this, it's not done anywhere in the state like that.
What's the course?
So it's called Science 150, it's environmental mapping.
What do you do?
So the classroom is limited with 14.
Class size of 14?
I'm sorry. Yes, it's very individually, it's very individual. You know what, I don't want to spend time, talking about it, because it's getting late. But afterwards, I'd be more than happy to tell you.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
You know what, statewide, the class ratio actually is 1 to 10 for a mapping course, a GIS class. That's the standard. So 14 actually is
in a
beyond it.
4-year college?
Yes, it's taught at most 4 years colleges, in fact. Many, I should say. And that's the the New York State Association of GIS, okay?
How about an English class?
I can't speak
How about
out,
math class?
but you know what?
How about a history
The
class?
problem here is, we're not talking about 2, we're talking about 4. The increase was by 4. And the other thing is, many of the classes under Osling were...
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we have a speaker up here. Please give him your respect.
Okay, I understand that this is such a mess that many of the departments had increases on top of increases on top of increases. So you're talking about 4, 6, many more students that they're at right now. So again, if I could go back to this, if we could agree, and I think the administration agrees too, that there's a problem with the numbers, that we haven't given enough thought to your question of what if we do add 2? I don't think the faculty necessarily would be, or certainly the Senate would be objecting to adding 2, if it fits in the discussion. If the experts who teach that class, because you said you're asking an expert, is that an appropriate number? And what if we tweak it up a little bit? I think, the faculty is willing to compromise. That's part of the shared governance process. But you're not giving us a chance.
Let me just reply. Hold on. Let me just reply. David, I think you hit the nail on the head. What we need here is a greater communication and cooperation between the academic faculty and the administration.
Yes.
But that means give and take.
Yes.
Right?
That's what happens in Senate committee.
Guys, yes, but I've had this discussion. The shared governance, I've spoken with David. When you go to a committee and you have 4 faculty and 1 administration, you win every time. When you have 70 votes in the Senate and 10, you win every time. So I do expect cooperation and confluence back and forth. Dr. Saunders.
I just want to make one comment, because the inference that I'm hearing is that there hasn't been an effort on the part of the administration to work collaboratively. When we became aware of the changes in the class size numbers, the executive vice president asked all of the chairs through their respective deans if they had an issue with the reinstatement of them up to the higher numbers. And if there were legitimate concerns or issues that were identified, those numbers were not restored to the higher numbers. There's been no acknowledgement of that.
And you're acting as if there has not been a conversation or a level of engagement that represents the collegiality that we're talking about. And that was in fact done.
But what I'd like to respond is that we were not notified in the Senate. We were not part of that. We were not, we meet with Ken and Maria every other week. We were not notified in those meetings. So I would say, Ken, maybe you talked to chairs, but you didn't talk to the process, the Senate.
I would like to add one other thing. I would like to add one other thing,
Last
please.
statement from the table.
It is.
Yeah, no,
I'd like to add one other thing. We're talking about the May 2010 letter from VP Osling. If we look at this letter acknowledges, and I'm going to read one line. Dr. Osling wrote, this is number 5 in the letter, there is some merit in the accusation that the Office of Academic Affairs acted more unilaterally in raising class sizes than is ordinarily the case. In the context of the reason he gave, which he argues he has to give. However, I do believe you, the faculty, the Senate, are owed a full exposition of the academic affairs perspective on budgetary issues. He was cognizant of the fact that there was a process in place, and he was taking an action that was outside of the context of this process that was in place. He says this is more unilateral than is ordinarily the case. We've got a process. Middle States is telling us we're supposed to have a process to address these issues. Why don't we just use the Senate process we have? Now, I'm not talking about numbers here. I'm asking that administrators speak at the Senate again. Most administrators remain silent during Senate proceedings. Let's hear about these issues on the floor of the Senate so that we don't come to the position or the situation where suddenly we don't know the position. We just have a vote, but nobody says anything from the point of view of the administration. Let's just use the process.
We're not on the floor of the Senate now.
No, we're not.
And what you're saying is the only thing that's going to satisfy you is a list of class sizes from 1970-something?
No, that's not it.
No, Trustee Cornacchio, what would satisfy us is that you, the members of the board, return the decision-making and the discussion, the collaborative discussion to the Senate. That we hear from all members, all constituencies on the Senate floor. That is not just faculty. We want to know what administrators think. We want to know what students think, and we ask that they speak at the Senate so that we can have a discussion. That's what the point of the Senate is.
Meanwhile, we have class sizes, present classes. You're putting us in a position where you're making it very difficult.
No, I'm making it easy. I'm asking us to follow Middle States.
Dr. Deludi, David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Saunders, thank you. Please retire to your seats.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Excuse me, Counselor Gordon. May we ask what the procedure is?
We're trying to figure it out.
Okay.
I told you that we're writing the script as we
I
go
know,
along.
we're just wondering.
We're trying to
As
figure
soon
it
as we
out.
figure it out, I'll let you know.
Do I have any thoughts on what you're doing now?
Absolutely. You're on that table.
Do we vote now on this one?
Do you want to vote on, do you want to take a vote on this?
While it's fresh in our minds.
While it's fresh in our mind? Watch your head.
That's what I just said, I'm so confused, I don't know what to do. I may have to abstain, because I don't know what I'm doing.
We may just have to go ahead and say, hey, administration set the class up. We'll go back to 1970
And that's not like you know that.
Members of the board, we have one suggestion, if we may offer it, that perhaps we can present a written summary.
Give me just 1
My excuse to stand up.
I don't disagree with this. I'm going to ask everybody to please take their seats. Okay. I'm going to make a motion under Article 4, Section 3 of the Board's Rules of Procedure to allow for the consideration of an item that does not appear on the calendar. Do I have a second?
I'll make the motion. I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Drucker. And I'm going to introduce this. I'm going to read it in its entirety. Whereas the Academic Senate has presented to the Board of Trustees its decision to override Acting President Saunders' veto of the Academic Senate's resolution on class size dated April 7, 2015. And whereas both the Academic Senate and the College Administration have been afforded the opportunity to be heard by the Board of Trustees and discuss their respective positions with the Board of Trustees in public session. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Nassau Community College hereby sustains Acting President Saunders' veto of the Academic Senate's resolution on class size dated April 7, 2015, and that effective fall of 2015, with the caveat that administration work collaboratively with the Academic Senate in a collegial manner to arrive at consensus regarding class size in those departments that require particular modifications. Is there any discussion of the resolution?
No. So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0.
May I just make one comment, please? I just want to have it on record that the Academic Senate is disturbed that the college's legal counsel, Chuck Catola, was consulting with the Board of Trustees during the period.
That's your interpretation. He was not
It is-
consulted.
well,
He was not consulting, we asked him on
talking.
point of
May I
order.
use the
Language, we had a
word-
legal question.
May I use the word talking? And I just want to
Talking
have
is
that
correct.
on record, that the legal counsel of the college was talking with the members of the board.
Actually, Chuck Catola was not legal counsel for the college.
He's a member of the administration.
Chuck
And so I
Catola
just
was
want
not
and he's a
legal
member-
counsel for the college.
He's a member of the administration, and I want it on record, just from our point of view, that it is disturbing to us.
So noted.
So noted. All right, we're going to pass to degree revisions. The academic senate can please come up. You have 15 minutes.
You need the laptop?
What's that?
Did you need the laptop?
Yeah.
Degree revisions.
Alliance is it on?
Say what?
You know what it is? It's when they printed the order got kind of messed up, so it goes like that instead of the way you'd expect. I apologize for that. No, there's...
No, this is, don't worry about this. One page is the two.
Oh, you know what? You have the original in there. They're stapled. But as soon as you start looking at the original, they're stapled. They're like 5 pages. And again, I apologize that the order is messed up on the printout.
Yes, what do you need?
We need one back.
It's PDF, and I just want you to full screen it.
1, 2, do all members of the board have? Lose the jacket.
The administration argues that the degree requirements of the AA liberal arts degree lead to student attrition and adversely impact degree completion rates. Specifically, they target math, science, and PED as the culprits. The Academic Senate respectfully rejects the administration's reasoning and encourages the Board of Trustees to support the Senate override of the AA degree revisions. In the conclusions to the final report by the college's academic deans, May 2015, the claim is made that many students satisfy all other requirements before tackling math, science, and PED. Therefore, a, quote, plausible case, end quote, is made by the deans for citing these requirements as the cause for not completing the degree. But can this conclusion be legitimately drawn from this enrollment pattern based on the data provided? The answer is no. Some of the most famous college dropouts on the national stage are Scott Walker, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg. Governor Walker left Marquette University to, as he says, pursue employment opportunities at the local chapter of the Red Cross, and he cites family obligations as the reason for not returning to college. And Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg certainly didn't drop out of college due to math and science requirements. So many of our students are in the same boat. Life collides with their personal plans for higher education. Our students juggle full-time and part-time employment. They have to pay the bills. Could any of us complete an AA degree in 2 years while working full-time? Our students do not have the support system that their middle-class peers enjoy to direct them in their academic path through the seamless pipeline that SUNY envisions. NCC nevertheless serves as a powerful magnet to draw them back into the classroom. Let us remember that higher education in the United States of the 21st century is a human right. Professor Merlo will lead us in our arguments.
Thank you, Dr. Deluti. Good evening, members of the board, acting President Saunders administration, students, and faculty. Thank you for making this meeting last as long as it has, because if I were home, I would have watched the Mets game, and they got no hit tonight by the Giants. So none of us wanted to see that.
So what else is new?
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack about this resolution, but I'm going to start by talking about what I think is probably the most important topic to you, and that's you. You, the Board of Trustees and the President, are, to the public, the face of this institution. To Newsday, to SUNY, to pretty much everybody outside this building. When people think of the leadership of Nassau Community College, they think of you. Certainly when Middle States thinks about the leadership of Nassau Community College, they think about you that are assembled here, much more so than they think about us faculty or the administrators. And so, when they make their decision after they visit next year, whether to continue our accreditation or put us on warning or something worse than that, that's going to be a reflection of what they see as your leadership and the way that you've been steering this ship for the past however long you've been here. You know what the Middle States Commission is. You know that they define, maintain, and promote educational excellence. You know that they require an institution to comply with all 14 of the standards of accreditation. And here's my concern. As I read the resolution that we're talking about the AA and the math and science and phys ed, I can find, if I put myself in the position of pretending to be a Middle States evaluator, coming here not knowing anything about the school, I can find 5 standards that this single resolution violates. First of all, Standard 4 is called Leadership and Governance. The Commission on Higher Education expects a climate of shared collegial governance in which all constituencies involved in carrying out the institution's missions and goals participate in the governance function in a manner appropriate to that institution. Institutions should seek to create a governance environment in which issues concerning mission, vision, program planning, resource allocation, and others as appropriate can be discussed openly by those who are responsible for each activity. And I feel like secret documents, reports that we never get to see or that never go through the Senate process, I think that violates that. Each must contribute to an appropriate degree so that decision makers and goal setters consider information from all relevant constituencies. Again, when the administration hides data from us, presents reports to you without going through the process, now you guys have to decide which one of these is correct. I don't think that's fair to you, and ultimately I don't think it's fair to the students. Most importantly, from Standard 4, for you, whatever the title, board, directors, trustees, governors, or regents, the governing body is ultimately accountable for the academic quality, fiscal and academic integrity, academic planning, assets, and financial health of the institution. It should review institutional assessment results and participate in institutional planning. However, it should not manage, micromanage, or interfere in the day-to-day operation of the institution. What's more day-to-day operation of the institution than what degrees we support and what classes are in them? And I really think that when Middle States looks at this resolution and looks at the language of it, they're going to think that you guys are micromanaging the day-to-day operation. So if I were in your shoes, I'd be worried about that. I'd also be worried about Standard 6, which deals with integrity. Academic and intellectual freedom gives one the right and obligation as a scholar to examine data and to question assumptions. Your resolution says, here's the answer, find us the data to back it up, which is the complete antithesis to what this standard says. I lost my place. To restrict the availability or to limit unreasonably the presentation of data or opinions is to deny academic freedom. They're not going to be happy with that. Standard 10 is about faculty, and if you have, I believe you received the booklet from Middle States that talks about all these 14 standards. When you get to Standard 10, right at the very top in boldface, the very first thing it says about faculty. The institution's instructional research and service programs are devised, developed, monitored, and supported by qualified professionals. And since they're saying this under the heading of faculty, they mean us. The faculty and other qualified professionals are responsible for devising and developing an institution's academic, professional, research, and service programs within the framework of its educational mission and goals. Now, about the mission. I know you know what the college mission says. I'm just going to read a couple of sentences. One sentence. It says the college is dedicated to high-quality, low-cost education and career preparation to meet the needs and interests of the community it serves. Now, you may remember a few months ago, I stood right there in that spot to talk about what the community needs, to talk about that blog post from LinkedIn, and how 21 of the 25 most sought-after jobs were tech jobs. But you don't have to take my advice. If you would follow the advice, yes, that's what I want you to do. Please do it now. Maybe you will follow the advice of President Obama, who we know is a huge supporter of community colleges and is trying to get more students into community colleges. Check this part out. the $90 million right here, Let Everyone Dream campaign, to expand STEM opportunities to underrepresented youth. Do you guys know who underrepresented youth are? Because they show up here every day on a bus, trying to come here to get an education that they can't get anywhere else. The President of the United States is behind this. I think that everyone here should be as well. Also, under fundamental elements of faculty, educational curricula designed, maintained, and updated by faculty and other professionals who are academically prepared and qualified. Under the same heading, adherence to principles of academic freedom within the context of institutional mission. Ask yourselves, does this resolution support these standards, or does it fly in the face of it? Put yourself in the time. When are they coming? March? April? Something like that. When they get here and they read this resolution, and they read it with the idea of these standards in mind, what are they going to say? Standard 11, I think we're also in trouble on. Standard 11, educational offerings. Effective educational offerings thus begin with expected learning outcomes. Statements expressed in observable terms of the knowledge, skills, and competencies that students are expected to exhibit upon successful completion of a course. Nowhere in this standard does it say, figure out what other colleges in the area are doing and do that. It doesn't say that. It says exactly the opposite. Educational offerings congruent with the mission, which include appropriate areas of academic study of sufficient content, breadth, and length, and conducted at levels of rigor appropriate to the programs or degrees offered. That means teach what we need to teach. Program goals that are stated in terms of student learning outcomes and not in terms of what other schools are doing. I think we're in trouble here. Finally, I think we're in trouble on Standard 12, general education. Institutional requirements assuring that upon degree completion, students are proficient in oral and written communication, here comes the good part, scientific and quantitative reasoning, and technological competency appropriate to the discipline. It's 2015, our students need to have math and science in their courses, especially if they don't think they do. Because that means that they don't really have a grasp on what's going on out there in the world. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they understand what skills they need. Now, in 2004, as you know, Middle States came and they said really, really cool things about us. We did a magnificent job of establishing a very strong collegial decision-making environment. These italics are mine because I think they're important. Through the use of the Academic Senate, not by going around the Academic Senate. That's what matters. What happens if we lose accreditation? I'm not saying we're going to lose it this year. Or we can go on warning, there's all other bad things that can happen. I'm not the Middle States expert. But what kind of things can happen? Students will no longer be eligible for federal financial aid. Four-year colleges and employers might not accept degrees from our students if we're an unaccredited institution. So let's take all the students who get financial aid, let's take all the students who don't want four-year degrees or jobs, and let's put them in Category A. What do we have in Category B? Nothing. Close this place down, board the windows up, we're out of business. We need this accreditation, and it's going to fall on you guys if it doesn't happen. I think you need to know that about this resolution that you passed in January. Now, about that resolution, there are a couple of things in it that I haven't mentioned yet that I think are worthy of mention. And the first thing is that your resolution states that at the November 6th meeting of CWCC, several CWCC members suggested that the graduation requirements for the General Liberal Arts AA and the General AS degrees should be revisited after the deadline for seamless transfer was met. Several CWCC members. Do you know how many several is? 2. 2 of the 35 voting members at that meeting expressed that idea, which is 5-point-some-odd%. The resolution goes on to say that similar comments are made by members of the Academic Senate. Now, I didn't have to read these minutes. I wrote them. I know how many people said that. 2. Do you guys want to hang your hats on 6% and 2%? Is that what you're going to go to Middle States with? Because I think you lose. Let's talk about this. Most area colleges. What area colleges are we talking about? First of all, let's talk about the differences between 2-year and 4-year colleges. Because are we talking about Hofstra? Are we talking about Stony Brook? Because if we are, we need to have an honest decision, an honest conversation about these places. First of all, 4-year schools have admission standards that are vastly different than ours. I looked last night. Adelphi recommends that new freshman applicants have 3 units of science and 3 units of math before they fill out the application. Before Adelphi hears from them, 3 years of high school math, 3 years of high school science. Malloy doesn't only recommend that, they require it. Do you know what our requirement is for applying? A high school diploma. Now, with respect to my colleagues who teach history and English and French and whatever, I know those things are important. I know students think they're important. But there's no guarantee that these students got more than a year of math or science. They're not necessarily prepared to study what they need to study here. Some students are. Mr. Cornacchio, you and I spoke the other night about how some high schools obviously do a very good job of preparing students. But that's not the case across the board. Let's talk about the backgrounds of the students that come here. Students that go to four-year colleges are often well-to-do and often well-prepared for college. But the students that come here, sometimes they're the first people in their family to ever step foot on a college campus. Who do they have at home telling them, do your homework? Who do they have at home telling them you better read the textbook for an hour and take notes and make an outline? Who do they have at home telling them, here's how you succeed in college? Oftentimes, nobody. A lot of these students have poor study skills, little exposure to the ideas or the sheer amount of work that they're going to need to do to succeed in the classes that we have here. So, in the resolution, you talk about a general liberal arts BA or BS degree. And I have to admit, and I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I have to admit I never heard of that. I never heard of a bachelor's degree in general liberal arts. Please, somebody let me know if that exists at some area school. I never heard of it. And so I think when we're talking about most area colleges, what we're talking about is Suffolk. Westchester has a similar but much smaller population. Queens and Brooklyn, they're a different system, and again, smaller populations. So, by the way, Professor Buckner told me that I think I got the name of this degree wrong. I think Suffolk calls it something else, but the points are valid. Suffolk requires 2 math, 1 science, another math or science. Oh, and he told me that I got that wrong too. It's slightly wrong, but the number of credits work out. And 2 credits of phys ed. This is what Suffolk is requiring. This is what Suffolk has their students do. And you know what? That's what we have our students do. So, based on that alone, forget middle states, based on that, I don't know what this conversation is about. Because we're doing what comparable school in the area is doing. Besides that, and I haven't been able to get full information on this, I'm not even sure who to ask, but you guys may have more access to chargeback data than I have. Where do our students come from? How many students come here that live in Suffolk and Queens and Brooklyn and the Bronx and wherever? And how many of our students go somewhere else? Now again, I don't have that data, but I think when you look at it, you're going to see that we bring in many more students than we send out to other schools. And there's a reason for that. It's because they want to come here. It's because our viewing in the world, our tradition is for academic excellence, more so than other schools that are relatable to us. And I think that explains why that discrepancy is there. Trustee Jackson, how am I doing on time?
About 1 minute.
Okay.
But
So,
I do want to just mention, I heard earlier that you, members of the board, spoke with Dr. Saunders in the afternoon, and we were not afforded such discussions. So
No.
You're wasting his minute.
all right. Dr. Saunders' letter of May 1st mostly restates the original board resolution. It doesn't really say anything new. He also says that the Senate may not usurp the statutory powers and responsibilities of the President of the Board of Trustees. While I agree with that statement, that's not what we're doing. In fact, we're doing the very opposite. It is our responsibility, it is our statutory power to make decisions in academic matters. Why do students stop coming here? The clandestine report that I didn't see until last week that you guys have had for I don't know how long, from the college's academic deans, states that evidence shows that high rates of non-completion of math, science, and phys ed requirements. But just because the data exists doesn't mean there's a cause. Doc, if you had patients, 75% of your patients that chew gum also have difficulty breathing. Does the one necessarily have anything to do with the other? Because that's what this report says, that this fact that I cherry-picked from nowhere says that this one also occurs. Why might students take math and science courses later? Maybe it's because they don't have the prerequisites. Maybe it's because they don't like it. But maybe it's because a lot of classes, psychology and sociology and some others, there are no remedial requirements, whereas in math and science there are. So they come to the school, they want to take the courses they want to take, I know I'm out. But they can't take them because they don't have the opportunity to. What I'm saying is that data, I think, is flawed. And you can't take a cause out of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Very much.
Well done. Okay, guys, I'm going to
I'm just trying to...
Yeah, I know. All right. Administration will step up to the table. Next job, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Who's going on the fire line, Ken? You or Maria?
Okay. Guys.
Good evening.
Please introduce yourself to
Yes,
the...
I'm Tom Fernandez, Acting Dean of Mathematics and Science. This is Jerry Kornbluth, Dean of Professional Studies. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on the matter of degree requirements. Since we're all probably past our mental time, good mental time, I'm going to try to stick closely to the 4 actions that have brought us to this specific subject this evening. Board of Trustees resolution dated January 13th, 2015 directs the Academic Senate to make evidence-based recommendations for options in the AA degree in general liberal arts that allows for graduation with fewer than 2 courses in mathematics, 2 courses in science, and 2 credits of physical education. The Academic Senate passes a resolution dated April 13th, 2015, calling upon the Board of Trustees to rescind its resolution of January 13 in acknowledgement of faculty's role in developing curriculum through the process of shared governance. Third resolution, presidential veto dated May 1st, 2015. Dr. Saunders vetoes the Senate's April 13th resolution to rescind on the grounds that the board's resolution does in fact respect the Academic Senate's right to recommend degree requirements for the consideration of the President and the Board of Trustees. Finally, resolution number 4, the Academic Senate overrides the presidential veto on May 12th, 2015, which is the point that brings us to the board's meeting table tonight. Since the board's original resolution contained a May 12th deadline, the academic deans gathered data and prepared a report to the board addressing 3 essential areas: comparability of NCC degree requirements with those of other area colleges. Second, the issue of retention as a potential impact of degree requirements. Third, common errors of fact contained in claims and counterclaims being advanced in public discussions of degree requirements. I should mention that no report was advanced by the Academic Senate in compliance with either the shared governance process or the May 12th deadline of the board's original resolution. However, a report by one math science department was forwarded to the board in the absence of any review or discussion by the academic senate. In any case, the administration does acknowledge the energy with which this department took up its counter-initiative. Rather than review all of the supporting data laid out in the administrative report, which you have in your data packets of an earlier distribution and which Jerry can hand out for your review this evening, let me just focus on some of the summary conclusions that we need to address. First, regional community colleges require less than 2 math courses, 2 science courses for degree completion of general studies in the liberal arts. The prevailing practices are in fact as follows. 1 math course, 88% of regional community colleges. 1 science course, 70% of regional community colleges. 3 math science, a combination thereof, 27% of regional community colleges have that requirement. And finally, 4 math science, which is essentially what we have in our new degree revision. Only 6% of regional community colleges make that requirement. As far as the physical education requirement is concerned, 85% of regional community colleges do require 1 to 2 courses in physical education. Regional transfer institutions at the baccalaureate level, on the other hand, overwhelmingly, 84%, require but 1 math, 1 science, and no physical education. Completion rates. Math, science, and physical education requirements have, indeed, the highest non-completion rates among the AA students, associate in arts students, who leave the college when compared to other areas of degree requirements. For example, of the students who complete 37 to 48 credits at this college, AA students that do not return, 64% do not complete the math requirement, compared to 42% not completing the humanities requirement or the social science requirement. In the report that you have received, we have further comparisons that are made among the different areas of degree requirement that suggest that the math, science, physical education area stands out as the highest non-completion area of degree requirement. Is that a causal relationship? Absolutely not. It's a correlation. Although not our report's primary focus, the administration's report also reviewed some of the counterclaims to these statistics made at previous Board of Trustees meetings. These are found to be misled by 2 essential issues. 1, comparisons of NCC's AA degree requirements with those of AS and BS degree requirements at other institutions. Obviously, those degree areas, those degrees are going to require greater levels of math proficiency and science proficiency than our general studies AA students. The second flaw in some of these arguments is the failure to distinguish course options within degree requirements that vary from institution to institution. For example, in many institutions, psychology can replace a math requirement. If you don't know that, right, you're saying that students are requiring less math or less in the psychology area. On the basis of these statistics and nothing further complicated than that, we are prepared to make recommendations as to the modification of the AA degree in general studies that require 1 math, 1 science, and no phys physical education. Jerry, you have anything you want to add?
I think my role here tonight, since it's so late, is just, since I'm a little younger than Tom, is to kind of supplement anything that he might have missed. But Tom, I think, presented an eloquent description of why we feel that there should be this restructuring of the general AA degree. Also, a lot of our discussions, besides looking at the other colleges in the area, we're also part of what they call the Larachi Superintendent's Partnership, and we do communicate with other colleges in the area, and we do communicate with the K through 12. So there are basically 4 reasons behind this restructuring, and that is, we believe that it will help us to recruit students, it will help us retain students, there is a financial implication here as well, it will increase our graduation rates. When you look at the numbers and you see how many students are leaving the college, not completing anything and not transferring, it's kind of astounding that they're waiting till the end to take the math and the science, and they're leaving before they do complete it. So I think that reevaluating this is extremely important for the success of the college and for the students.
Dean Fernandez, what you just handed us, we have seen before. This is nothing new.
Correct.
It's
in your booklet.
Right, and the members of the Academic Senate have seen this also, yes?
And we don't know what it is.
Well, I know that, I'm not asking you.
Then I can't tell you.
In the binder.
It was in the binder.
Okay, so it's included in the binder, the same binder that we're sitting here in front of us.
He's referenced it in his slides as the May 2015.
Then we saw it for the first time last week.
I'm just because I know people saw something being handed to us.
Okay.
And I just wanted to reaffirm that we did receive it and that it was sent to you.
Dean Fernandez, we had presented.
They made earlier reports too.
Right.
Yes.
Wasn't it in March or April, you had presented this as?
There was an earlier version of this report. We brought it up to date based on...
It was March or April. Yeah, I remember.
It was at the March Academic Affairs meeting.
No. Academic Affairs meeting, this report had come out.
The academic senate.
In either March or April.
No, sir, respectfully, it did not.
No. Well, it was discussed at a public meeting, at the Academic Affairs Committee meeting, at which there are people in the audience. So some of this was presented to us prior to this.
Okay, Chris and Dr. Deludi, I'm going to ask you to come back up here. And yeah.
I'd like to make a point of clarification, Chris, on something you said, that we just asked for a high school diploma. In fairness, this is the former high school principal / superintendent. In order to get the minimum Regents diploma, you need 3 years of math, 3 years of science. So it's not that that requirement is not there like you reported at the other colleges. It's the same requirement to get a diploma. The only exception would be special education students who might, severely impaired students. All of the rest have the exact same. 4 years of English, 4 years of social studies, 3 math, 3 science, and I can go on. So it's no different. That is a high school diploma.
You clearly have way more expertise in that than I do.
Interesting.
I can only go by what I thought.
And I'm just saying, that is, so it's no
it.
different. By saying a high school diploma, we're saying the same thing here. Just point of information.
I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to the board for questions.
I have a few questions. With regard to the administration spokespeople, we have the design of 64 credits. I personally assume that when you all finish tinkering and plotting and deleting and adding, we're going to wind up with 64 credits for a degree, am I correct?
You have to maintain 64.
So if we get rid of economics as a requirement, okay?
Chair of economics, please leave me alone.
If we get rid of philosophy as a...
Oh, boy.
Philosophy is bound to humanities and is not a a requirement. It satisfies the humanities
The
requirement.
students will have additional electives to choose from, but the degree requirement
Second
would be
giant homunculus, you press it in one area, it
64,
pops up.
and the balance of the credits would be distributed among the other areas.
Because part of the mass hysteria that goes on is that besides which we're going to line up all the teachers one by one and take away their sexual organs and then kill them, is that we're going to put graduation down to 15 or 16 or 48. No one contemplates that at all. Is that correct? Okay. Now, my next question is, when you talked about regional colleges, what did you, what colleges are you talking about?
Okay, on the administrative report, the pages 2 and 3.
Are they the ones that are in the list?
Identify all of
Okay,
the
good.
colleges.
That's awesome.
Right.
And this is in the booklet that... Dr. Gordon.
I'll be right back.
Should I stop talking? Make sure you wash your hands, sir.
You are really tired.
Biology is a lab science.
Could somebody sit closer to Mr. Quinn?
Now, here's my question, one further question. You have here math, science courses, science courses, math, science courses.
Okay, because some institutions allow you to choose a math or science in that as a third category, right? So, for instance, you take Adirondack, okay? Adirondack requires one math, one science, and one math or science.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, so that's how we count that.
Well, you count it as one science.
No.
The percentages, you only count it as one science.
I'm going to, while Dr. Gordon's out of the room, that's not appropriate. You
Okay.
can comment on it from the floor.
Sorry.
Otherwise, we're going to lose the whole meeting. Mr. Cornacchio, did you have another question?
I think that those are the only questions I had. I mean, I'm sure other people have other questions.
Can I ask a question?
No, you're not. I'm going to reaffirm something, because Mr. Cornacchio asked the question that I had in my head. If I'm a writing major, and we just approved a course, an AA in creative writing, if I did not have to take 2 math, 2 science, for a minute I'm going to put the PE aside for a second, and it was like Adirondack, a math, a science, and a math or science, so I have 3 credits in the sciences.
Right.
Then does that mean I would then be able to take another course, a psychology course, a writing course, a humanities course, anything like that to fill the 64?
Well, it depends on their actual degree structure,
So
right?
that, but that would then go back to
With
some
other
department,
area of
to the committee,
some
to
other
somebody?
area of the degree.
No, but I'm asking who would make that decision for the student, what they would do for that extra
Well, that's an
course?
elective category, right? In
Okay.
other words, they can choose from among different courses in a given elective category. When we say one math, one science,
but yes.
yeah, that dictates math, science. No
Right.
other course can take that place. If it's a humanities or a social, let's say behavioral science category, that's kind of an elective category. You can choose from a number of different areas. And by the way, it's interesting that some of those areas which are seemingly not mathematical or non-scientific can very well be. A psych course in many institutions contains a great deal of quantitative delivery as well as scientific delivery. So it's very possible that students can get the same preparation in other courses, not specifically math or science designated.
Again, this is my lack of understanding of process, but let's just say that was the decision, that students would have that one additional elective. Does the decision go back to the department, to
Yes.
some committee at the Senate? I'm trying to figure out what structure to decide where that other credit gets fit into?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be a function of that degree program. That's called a discrete program. In other words, it has categories specific to
Right, I
the
saw that,
training
but
of that
this
degree.
particular one, so it's, go
We
ahead.
have a curriculum committee of the academic senate. Everything has to go through this curriculum
Well, that's what I'm
committee of the
trying to
Design of the
academic
program.
senate. But may I make a comment about what's being discussed now? Members of the board, are you also taking into consideration what the goal of our degree is? We're a transfer institution. 70% of liberal arts students who follow the AA degree transfer to four-year colleges. You just gave us a mandate to bring our degree in line with SUNY seamless transfer. That's to bring it to 64 credits, but not just 64 credits, because that whole degree totally changes what an AA degree is. SUNY has changed the degree and said students must complete major requirements in the first 2 years. Until now, our students don't think majors, they're just taking liberal arts courses. But our students are transferring to other institutions. Now, we brought down the credits to 64, but we haven't looked into what happens when our students now transfer to other institutions. May I just finish, please, to other institutions? For instance, there are some institutions that will not give credit to students for a lab science if they only took one semester. Bio 109 and 110. For any student who wants to go on into any medically related field, they have to do Bio 109 and 110, not Bio 101 and 102. Now, in some institutions that our students transfer to, if they take Bio 109 and don't take Bio 110, they're not going to get credit for this. In 2007, the New York Times ran a cover story in the education supplement. Nassau Community College, the transfer institution. Our students come here because of the tuition that they can afford. They do the first 2 years of college, and then they transfer to other schools in the area and beyond. We need to review what this new degree implies. You just told us, bring our liberal arts AA degree in line with SUNY seamless transfer. Are we aware of all the implications that SUNY has imposed on us? How can we now change a degree again when we haven't even seen where this one will lead to? And who is advising our students? Our students don't know about any of this.
Was this a response?
Yeah, let him respond.
May I?
No, let him finish.
But I was not responding.
Hold on 1 second.
May I finish?
This is
We have to
in this portion.
There's no question.
In this
Well,
portion.
I wanted to finish the
Hold
point.
on a second. This portion, what we did in the first section was the trustees are going to ask questions, either of the administration side or the academic senate side, and you respond to the question. I don't want another 15 minutes of going off, because guys, we don't want to be here all night. So, I was absent. Was there a question that was asked that you were replying to by a member of the Board of Trustees?
The question was asked about the 64 credits and how you would decide it, and I'd like to put the discussion in the broader context of what a change in degree.
We're not having a discussion.
I thought we were having a discussion. I thought that was the point of the evening.
I just asked the question because there was a lot of
Please.
comments by people that what's going to happen is going to be a design of much less than 64 credits. That's what they're plotting, and I wanted to establish that is not on the board's mind, and now we find out it's not on the administration's mind. I tried to ease the unreasoned fear that a lot of faculty people are feeling, that's all.
Dr. Deluny, are you aware that most private four-year universities are going to degree credits of 120? And so many of our programs at LIU are 129, 133, 136, and at this juncture, we're in the process of going back to 120 credits for a full degree program. In essence, that will empower schools like our school here to seamless transfer to four-year universities.
Trustee Toomey, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. May I answer?
Yes, of course.
Trustee Toomey, I'm aware of this, but I'm also aware of the fact that you just told us to bring our degree in line with SUNY seamless transfer. That's 64 credits, but it's not just a question of credits. Will our students get credit for the courses in the categories that we are giving them, or will they get the credits as electives when they transfer to a SUNY school? We haven't even looked into that.
Let's see if the
We don't
administration
know
can
how
answer
this.
that now and answer
Yes,
Well,
I-
they-
Yes.
What our
All-
teachers
all
have
the-
to say.
Look, this is simple. If it's a sequence in science, let's say, you have to take bio 109 and 110 in order to be able to get credit for either bio, okay? It counts as 2 sciences in this list. So what I'm saying is that's already accounted for in the counting that we made. When you speak about transfer, 84% of the baccalaureate institutions that we surveyed, and I believe they're relatively complete in terms of the local feeder, right? 84% require but one math, one science, and no phys ed. I don't know how you can...
May I also respond to the same question? I have 2 things to say on that point. Number 1 is we don't know what effect seamless transfer is going to have because it didn't even go into effect yet. Those degrees go into effect in September, so there are presently 0 students in that pipeline. And until students start taking those classes in September, and then start trying to transfer 2 years from now, we have no idea what the effect is
Well,
going to
things
be.
will change. If we have to change, something will change. You people will be on the alert and on the lookout, and so will people in the administration.
But those changes, and back to the original point of my presentation, is those changes in your best interest should be made
If
the
the answer
right
is
way.
we make no changes, the answer is I want to change.
That's not, no. Trustee Cornacchio, the answer is
Cornacchio.
not whether we should make a change or not make a change. There are 2 points to say. The lesser point is that we just made a change, why don't we figure out what it does? But the more important point is that with respect, it's not up to you to make the changes, it's up to the Senate to make the changes.
Well, that's where we think you're wrong. Because shared governance is not a one-party act around here.
No, I agree.
And the faculty seems to think that it means the faculty runs everything.
We don't think that, and that's not the case.
Trustee Cornacchio?
And
this is
what the
not-
board is doing is trying to bring things up to date as to what is current among the standards of the community of colleges and universities in our area.
With due respect.
And we think that's a good thing. You disagree, God bless you. I understand your position, but we think we're right. And we think we have an obligation under the law and a moral obligation besides. I will never forget the impact of the Nicholson Committee report your own academic senate committee did when it talked about what's going on at Nassau Community College and the reason for failures. And it talked about the 2 math, the 2 science, and the phys ed being a primary reason why people don't complete. And that's authored by Nicholson, who you could not get a better advocate, a more dedicated advocate for teachers. And he was the one who did that. That meant a lot to me.
With respect, if your answer to Middle States is we think we're right, we're all in a lot.
Don't worry about us with
We'll
Middle States.
handle
Don't
it.
worry about that. We'll handle Middle